Hi, Spots and Cheap Pops. You're on the air.
Hi, Spots and Cheap Pops. You know, folks, we love AEW here. We really do. We want it to succeed so darn well. But we got to talk about the 800 gorilla in the room. That gorilla is a cryptic, very slow moving storyline that is now boring the masses to tears.
Yes.
And here is our special look with Vladi Dadi on this very, very rough stretch for the AEW World Championship. Vladi Dadi,
Matt,
floor is yours.
thank you so much. And I do appreciate everybody's time here. And again, just to preface this, I am an AEW fan. I tend to watch it almost always, and I do even look to catch up on things. However, I got to say, something's been bothering me for quite a few months now, and this has got to be Jon Moxley's title reign and run with his quote unquote. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on YouTube, but the
D-Riders.
the D-Riders, or I've even looked at them as Moxley and his depressed abiders because they just kind of go along with this shit. So,
and other personalities have been fucking neutered.
Thank you. All right, so we're immediately. You and I have not even discussed this. We're on board together with this. So you have a situation from the ashes of the Blackpool Combat Club. You've had this shit Phoenix rising from the grave, and it's taken over and is in possession of the world title. And I got to go and take you back into a time warp here, Mr. Valley, to the date of August 28th, where a very hyped up Jon Moxley walked into the ring with Marina Shafir, which was a little unusual. So Blackpool Combat Club was still in place. And he cut a promo with Mr. Tony Schiavone, everybody's favorite announcer there. And at one point in time, he had this famous quote where he looked Tony Schiavone in the eyes and said, "This is not your company anymore." Right? And immediately, being the smart marks that you and I are, we're like, wait a second. He's talking to Schiavone, but we all know in Schiavone's ear is Tony Khan. So it's almost like he's talking to Tony Khan. And around that time, you had a situation where there was pictures of Shane McMahon, of all people, and Tony Khan having like a meeting. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. What's going on here? This all of a sudden felt a little bit different. I was excited for it. I'm like, man, what, is this, you and I are like, is this like sort of an NWO thing going on? Like, what's up? And, you have this little bit of like, a wave of something new, something fresh. And the only thing that I was a little bit befuddled about at that moment was that was now like the second sort of takeover angle that was currently going on at that moment.
Yeah.
Because you had the Elite going, and they went and did a tombstone pile driver on Tony Khan, and he showed up at the NFL draft with his neck in a brace, and now all of a sudden you got Moxley, and then you got like Shane McMahon in the wings, and I'm like, oh man, this could be really interesting. And honestly, at that point, they didn't sign with Warner Brothers yet, and just everything seems to sort of fall in play, and I was just like, man, this, if done right, this could be done well. So, I was being optimistic about it, dare I say. So, all of a sudden, this was the first of like a few, or no, I shouldn't say few. This is the first of many cryptic promos, which if I wish we had enough time in the day to go and just link all these promos and edit them together and just see what sort of
they all say the same thing. They're all saying the same exact thing, but he does it in a different way.
Yeah, I'm going to go spin my tires in front of you, and then we're going to change things, and because then we don't like it here, but we're going to change it, and we're not going to tell you what we don't like, and and that's really what Mox has been doing. So, he and his depressed abiders have start forming around this time, and this coincides with Bryan Danielson's final title reign, mind you, as a full-time wrestler. So they don't address the 800-pound gorilla in the room being that, hey, Danielson is part of the Blackpool Combat Club. Moxley isn't dressed as like in the Blackpool Combat Club gear. There's no real like interaction between the two. What the hell's going on? Then Danielson wins or defeats Jack Perry, I believe, at All Out.
Yep.
And there's a situation where instead of congratulating his friend, he tries to suffocate him with a plastic bag.
Which I liked. I didn't think it was as bad as other people did.
Well, yeah, like you liked it. I wasn't crazy about it, but what I found ironic and even more funny was there was like shock and awe in the crowd as he goes and does this suffocation ritual with him, and then only to have his thunder stolen minutes later by Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page because they just went and hit a grand slam of violence with hypodermic needles and cinder blocks in a match. So it wasn't like even the most violent thing that happened that night. Right?
I love that pay-per-view, by the way. I know I'm in the minority, but I absolutely loved that pay-per-view.
Yeah, listen, you loved it. There was, and again, I found a good amount of faults with it, and Moxley being one of them. So that was a little thing where again he's being cryptic with the Blackpool stuff. He gets one ups by Swerve and Hangman of all things, and then this is another thing that happened. Then all of a sudden that Grand Slam, he does some sort of weird carny Jedi mind trick with Darby Allin and persuades him out of his world title match, which he didn't have to go and put up, but somehow he puts it up against Mox, and I can't believe it. He lost it. Now Mox has a world title match and is rewarded with this. And of course, he ends Danielson's full-time career at WrestleDream and takes the world title away from him. And I'm sorry, were you about to say something?
Well, I'm sure you're going to keep going.
Yeah. And so basically, upon taking it, he goes and takes the title and puts it in a briefcase for us to never see it again.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. It was a duffel bag the first night.
Okay, duffel bag.
And they keep on saying, we assume that it's in the briefcase. And it's like...
well, is it? Is it not? I don't care at this point. And this is a really weird thing to do while you're trying to go and get your media like set up with Warner Brothers where you're not showcasing your world title. I've never seen this approach in my life. And honestly, if I was at Warner Brothers, I'd be like, hey, you know what? We'd like to see that title a little bit more than what Moxley's doing. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. So, this has laid the foundation for just a really shitty run for me. Now, I look deeper into this, and, I don't want to just be a jerk off and be like, Moxley's the worst, and he's not the best wrestler, and, his promos are just repetitive, cryptic, blah, blah, blah. Looking into this a little bit further, this is what's been really bothering me. Within this faction, he has not elevated anybody except for Marina Shafir. Okay. Other than Marina Shafir, he really hasn't elevated anybody. If you think back to the NWO, the Four Horsemen, DX, the early and the best versions got everyone in the group over. Take Sean Waltman, for instance. Be it a Six or X-Pac, he got over. He recently was at a WWE event in LA. I think it was for the Netflix thing. Got one of the biggest pops of the night. Right? Mm-hmm. The 1, 2, 3 Kid, mind you. Right? Flair had his enforcer, Arn Anderson. It's probably as beloved, if not more beloved, than Ric Flair at this point. Right? So people had roles, and the fans loved them for it. Now let's take Wheeler Yuta as an example here. He's actually has more time invested with Moxley and Claudio than Pac and Shafir. But yeah, for some reason, Moxley treats Yuta with the same respect that the Gimp from Pulp Fiction received. Honestly, other than looking like a superhuman impersonator, like the Juggalos and Juggalettes, I don't know what Wheeler Yuta is really bringing to the table at this point.
Misshaped head. Who has a more misshaped head? He or JD McDonough?
Ooh, that's close.
But I think JD might, because his body is a little more.
Yeah, it's a little bit less proportionate, if you said.
Weird.
If you want to say that.
Definitely looking weird.
That's the thing. Yeah, but the thing is, Wheeler, he gets treated like shit. And if his own faction barely tolerates him, then why would the crowd give a shit about him, really? He's just a punching bag, right? I look at Pac, very talented wrestler, and I will debate anybody about this. He was way more over with Death's Triangle as their leader than he was with whatever he's doing here. Just following along, doing whatever Moxley rambles about, because Moxley saw this movie, was it Romper Stomper, and he's had some sort of fever dream about this. And we all got to pretend that we saw this movie and are understanding what the fuck is he doing, right?
And when was the last time they defended the triples tag match?
Exactly. Yeah, it's barely been defended.
So those titles have zero fucking stroke right now. They're ruining those titles as well. I don't know if you were going to bring that part up.
Yeah, that was one of the things and then we talked about it now. They've really sort of neutered those titles as well. They're not really putting them out there. They might have gone against Edge and FTR for that, and I'm not even sure what happened. It was like a collision deal, I think, right?
Schmaz.
Yeah. So then let's get to Claudio. I look at Claudio as if he's in purgatory at this point. I mean, for one of the more skilled wrestlers in the business, he should be treated as like a viable replacement for Danielson. But instead, he's a smarter, more talented flunky than Mox. For Mox, really. So it just, he's there and just plods along and does whatever Mox bites him and just tells him to do. And we know he's smarter, he's more skilled, and it just bothers me. He should be elevated at this point. And let me just talk about Mox himself right now. All right. To me, Moxley himself should get back to his roots in a way, right? Maybe he's not the most gifted wrestler, but he could play the never submit, high tolerance for pain lunatic that takes his opponents to the limit, right? To their limits, especially. But instead, we get a cryptic prick who plays the badass heel, but whose actions are more chicken shit than anything else. If you doubt me on that, take a look at the moment that he looked to kidnap the Rock and Roll Express. He took the duct tape off of Ricky Morton's mouth, who told Mox to his face that he didn't have the balls to kidnap him. And Moxley reacted by running out the back door while the Outrunners entered the scene. So he was scared away by the Outrunners, of all people. Right? So this has really been bothering me. And what bothers me mostly is that the world title's attached to this. So, this entire time, we're still unsure what their motivation is as a group. Most importantly, they have not been able to convince anyone else to join their faction. I mean, really, what's not to love? I mean, who doesn't want to support a plodding pickup truck renting, long drives in the desert, speaking in circles while mainly feuding with guys that are just under that title? I mean, how's none of that cool? So, truthfully, that is what has been on my mind with Moxley. He has just been a big waste of TV time. This isn't getting any better. The only two people that, in my opinion, that should be even touching that belt at this point is either Will Ospreay or Kenny Omega. And allow me to just read one last quote from good old Mox here, where I know after reading this, I realized how much he likes the smell of his own farts. So this is what Mox is, the genius of Mox here. Quote unquote, storytelling is always needed. It's essential. It's non-negotiable. It's a vital element to wrestling, Mr. Valley. You need a hook. How much more do you enjoy sports when you have an investment in who the person is or the story of the season? Wrestling is no different. You're not going to go pick up a book that has a bunch of descriptions of random objects or events. There has to be a story or a thread that will take you on a ride. So with that,
So far, so good. I agree with him right there so far. Right?
But he refuses to follow his own advice. So he's the most ironic champion that I've ever seen in my life. So truthfully, man, there you got my takedown of Moxley and his depressed abiders.
Well, he added to that, which I thought he got really pretentious to that. I don't know if it was the same interview.
This is the story of the one.
He was basically what Mox says, and I can't find the quote right now, and hopefully we have it up when by the time we're doing the editing. He basically is saying, stop asking questions and what have you and he literally said the ride that he's taking us on. And he finished with, if you smell what the Mox is cooking. No, he didn't do that last part. But he basically said, just enjoy the ride that that I'm taking you on. He said that. This is the problem, Vladi. As you said, this is not enjoyable. Where's the hook? He's talking about the hook. Where is the hook, bro? Orange Cassidy's the hook, or that ridiculous four-way, which no one thought you were losing, is the hook. Just wasting time and giving defeats to guys who need to be built up, like Jay White. That's the hook. So they're finally picking up, hopefully, some momentum with Edge. Oh, I'm sorry, Cope. I actually do have a quote here. We're not here to kill AEW. We're not here to kill AEW, man. We're not here to destroy AEW. It's quite the opposite. We're here to fix AEW. We're here to bring out the best in every single person that we step in the ring with. To get rid of what doesn't need to be here. To lay the beautiful foundation for the future. Will it take days? No. Will it take weeks? No. It'll probably take however long it needs to take. This will be our greatest work, and it will last forever. Moxley added. Or maybe everyone can just stop asking questions. Trust in us, and just enjoy the damn ride. That's what it was. The exact quote. How pretentious is that when he's boring his audience half to death? Yes. John, I mean, I'd personally rather be driven to the bowels of hell while a root canal is being performed on me than ride with the storyline any longer. We had a conversation in November, and you were already starting to sour on Moxley. You were already starting to sour on it. I was excited about it, particularly by the time September ran around in October. I said, okay, I can't wait, especially if it's going to be Shane McMahon. Yep. And you were like, well, this is what's going on so far. It's the same cryptic shit over and over and over. And I'm like, I'm going to be a little more patient. Well, patience is over, Mr. Moxley. And I apologize because I love the shit out of you, dude. I really do. I love Jon Moxley. I've been a huge proponent of him, and I've said so many kind things about him. I love the guy. I personally, in the interviews, he's the kind of guy I'd like to chill with and maybe talk about how he used to drink. But Moxley is not, and I don't know if it's because there's some pushback from Tony or whoever else in the company, but this storyline is going fucking nowhere fast. Even the thing with Cope isn't helping. No. It's helping a little bit. I mean, the big argument we had back in December when I started losing my patience is he's not going up against any bona fide main eventers. Jay White's not a bona fide main eventer on AEW and American television yet, folks. Particularly me, I'm one of the biggest Jay White fans you'll ever see. I will say to this day, and I'll die on this hill, he's the best Bullet Club leader of all time on a list that had Kenny Omega, AJ Styles, and Finn Balor. Oh, and that old Irish guy's kid. Forget his name. Finley. Finley's kid. Yes. I'm just kidding. David Finley. He's very, very good, but I think the numbers don't lie in terms of Bullet Club's popularity and merch sales and all that stuff. So anyway, I digress. Jay White's my boy. But they used him the same way since he signed a year and a half ago or almost 2 years ago. They used him the same way. It's hurting it because he hasn't been able to build any momentum of anything that he can really sink his teeth into. And I think he's doing great every time he gets on there, but they throw him in that four-way for whatever. Everyone knew that Moxley was winning. There was no way it wasn't going to go down that way. they had these weird things amidst the storyline where Moxley's supposed to be these crazy badass heels like you were saying. But then you have the more detestable heels, people like Christian Cage and other heels who are taking their heat away, which makes them not the heels and not so devastating and not so spooky and scary. The way they have booked this has been an absolute disaster, and it's not. It's almost a joke. You kind of like shit. Maybe they should sign Vince because at least there'll be some kind of random parts where there's a storyline that makes sense.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, like the one moment Cage called him out for being a drunk.
Oh, I love it. But the thing is, now all of a sudden, Moxley is the sympathetic character. That's the last thing you want Moxley to be right now.
Yep.
They are not a devastating group. The most entertaining thing, and I personally like it, I guess some people don't, but the most entertaining thing right now, and I think you said it, is the Callis Ospreay Omega deal and the Hurt Business. And by the way, the Hurt Business is supposed to be heels. And they're getting they got pops left and right when they were beating the shit out of Private Party. Tony Khan's got to understand these little guys, these little indie guys. That's not what your audience wants. And if you don't know that, check out. They were your babyface underdog champions, and they were getting booed, and the Hurt Business, dominant, destroying them, were getting cheered. That's exactly opposite of what you wanted to happen. So it's real. That's proof is in the pudding, Mr. Khan or Moxley or whoever's doing this stuff. What you're doing isn't working, and your crowd is telling you what they want. Even the AEW diehards are telling you what they want. Harley Cameron, she's getting popped, or she's getting pops all over the place. Still don't know if she won a match yet.
Yeah.
I think she might be facing Sasha Banks, but you got to start listening to the crowd, Tony, because you're doing the same damn thing that Vince McMahon did for a decade and not give a shit what the crowd wants. Just do it for your own, I don't know, for your own ego or your own entertainment. And Moxley is doing the same thing. Where's the hook, Moxley? Why? And you're keeping his belt off of TV. It's losing its prestige. I saw it on Dubs. There was a fan in WWE on the pre-show. I was like, oh man, I missed that belt.
Exactly. I remember what that looked like.
It's in a briefcase, which is so weird. And they keep on saying, we assume. Well, why do we have to, if it's in there, why would we have to assume? It better not be the belt. Because if it is the belt, then what was we assume? And why didn't you show us put it in the briefcase to begin with?
Yep.
It's just an absolute disaster. And I really thought Jon Moxley was better because we know there's certain guys in that company that have stroke over Tony. And they're gonna tell Tony what's what.
Yeah.
Moxley is one of them. So this is Moxley's baby. What are you doing, John? Seriously, what are we doing here?
Yep.
Where's the whole? Because, by the way, you brought up Wheeler Yuta. Okay, Wheeler Yuta. The whole thing is that they do abuse him, and he was eventually not going to take it anymore. But they're not really abusing him that often where people are making him a sympathetic character. If you're going to abuse him, you want Wheeler Yuta to be eventually a guy who maybe turns back and redeems himself. But he's not becoming a sympathetic character at all.
He's less than the entire group, and to me, it's obvious.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's happy to do it.
Yes.
He's like one of the, you know what I mean? He's like...
And he was the one that was specifically highlighted by Bryan Danielson here. One of the greatest wrestlers ever, and that should have uplifted him. But he's fetching Moxley his coffee.
And are we waiting for Darby Allin to come back and win this title? Darby Allin's not going to do it for me with Moxley.
Yeah.
You need to start putting your top stars in top places, and then having your top heels and your top baby faces fight each other. That's not a consistent thing we're getting. It's just not. I mean, you have a tag team division where you have the Murder Monsters the murder machines, the murder machines and the Hurt Business. That's money. That's money. These two teams could feud for 6 months and trade the titles once or twice.
And you'd have Callis against MVP, going back and forth, and there you go.
Because the Hurt Business are getting cheered. They're heels, but they're getting cheered because your AEW fans, they want stars. Not every indie blowjob that Tony takes a shining to, or that the Bucks say, "Hey, you should get this guy a try." Wink, wink. Like Private Party, they're boys.
Yeah, exactly.
They got it simply because they've been there a long time. They weren't over with the crowd. Might as well be DIY and Motor City Machine Guns in WWE.
Pretty much.
But that's why the crowd was cheering for the Hurt Syndicate. I call them the Hurt Business. I apologize. Don't get sued. That's why the crowd was cheering for the Hurt Syndicate, because they want to see the stars that they were excited for you to bring into this company. And you're not getting it done, Tony. You're just not. And Moxley, if this is your storyline and your baby, dude, you got to start change. You better bring something else into it. Him and Cope is much better, but it might be too little too late to get this thing going because it has stalled. And it's supposed to be the top storyline in your company, and people think it sucks bad. John Luxa, who loves everything of wrestling, he thought it was great Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble. And we'll get to that in another video. He loves everything. And he literally said Moxley is killing AEW right now.
See, that speaks volumes when you have somebody that sort of adheres to the programming, likes it, gives it a shot, week in, week out, and now they've reached their breaking point.
And these are people who love AEW, and they still watch it religiously. He loves AEW. Big Tony Storm fan. Thought it's been great. And she has been great.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Great job, Vladi, with bringing everything in together. Thanks for letting me throw my 2 cents in there.
By all means.
Because there are some good things happening in AEW. There really are.
Yeah.
But it's not involving your world championship or one of your highest paid and most one of your guys who have the most legacy in AEW and Jon Moxley.
Yep.
I'm of the thing where Kenny should be the one who takes the title off of him. And then you have Kenny and Ospreay go for the title. And then you have them make history. That's how I would do it. But that's not what Tony's going to do, because it's not what he wants. It's only what his fans want.
Yeah, and I really, when Omega returned, his first promo, I was really hoping he was going to set sights on Mox. They already have a history. He's like basically coming. He should have came back and been like, I need to go and change this. I'm not like the other EVPs. You want to go and destroy what we built? You came in off of our coattails, and I'm going to take that from you. And Omega's talented enough to go, of course, to go and take this from him, and rightfully should. But instead, they're diverting him to the Don Callis side, which, again, I'm a fan of Callis, but I just didn't need to see that feud right now. Go get the world title off of Moxley first. And then if it's Takeshita or Ospreay, and then you want to start doing that, yeah, fine. But get the goddamn title off of Moxley. I'm done with him watching a movie and being inspired and then basically just torturing us for 6 months.
I will say Ospreay did a good job of bringing up the title the other day in a promo. He said, I should be going out fighting the good fight against Jon Moxley, but I got the Don Callis family, ain't I?
When he said that, I didn't see that. When he said that, what sort of pop did he get? Did anybody react?
He kind of said it in the middle of a conversation
okay.
So he didn't stop right there.
Okay.
But he brought it up. But that's where the polish that say WWE has built up with the promos and helping people out with their promos. A lot of these guys need help with promos.
Yeah.
Just the way they just on inflection and also building a match. Like little details are missed very often in promos and matches that could make the thing better in AEW. And it's not because it's WWE, but WWE keeps and has a lot of people there who's done it a long time that people listen to. You know, in terms of their producers and things like that. And it seems like their producers are missing, or the wrestlers themselves are missing a lot of details that could really bring more, just like little things, just like waiting to tap out. Like after a hard fought match.
Yeah.
And then you get someone and then they tap out after like 3 seconds. Like it's the end of the match after you just put on a classic. Let that sink there for a little bit. Let the crowd build. Let's see you almost get there. Just little things like that. Sometimes AEW really misses the ball on, and I think they need to be more consistent with that. But that's, hey, you know, that's all I got for it in terms of that. There's a lot of stuff that's wrong with AEW. There's a lot of stuff that's right with AEW. But this Moxley
program,
this Moxley storyline is not something that is right with AEW, and it breaks my heart to hear because I love everybody involved with it. You know, even Marina Shafir I like more than I ever did. So, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I just, it's been bothering me. Yeah, you know, we discussed me discussing it, so here it is. And this is what's truly been grinding my gears, as Peter Griffin would say.
He may be wrong. He may be right. It's Vladi Dadi's Dynamite Review. Fuck Moxley version. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. High Spots and Cheap Pops. Vladi Dadi killing it with his nice little 1-2 about Jon Moxley. Check our next video out if you can. We're going to be talking about Jey Uso and the negative response that the WWE Universe is yeeting all over the internet about him. We'll see you guys next time here and at The Lesson. Thank you so much for watching High Spots and Cheap Pops. For Vladi Dadi, this is Silicon Steve Alley. Hit the subscribe button and let us know what you think. Thank you for watching, and here endeth The Lesson.